Well, hello everyone once again. First off, thank you so much for the support on the first video. I did not expect Jeremy or Chuck to take a look at it, let alone repost it. I think it got like 400 and something views, and we picked up a few new subscribers, so awesome. Thank y'all so much. So this channel's really been created to be more about my life than anything else. I haven't really uploaded on that too much, but so I'm planning on uploading more of this content for networking stuff as well. But don't be surprised if you see random uploads of my dogs or cats or stuff like that. So first off, thank you again for all the support. And I kind of was like, well, what do we record next? We've done a review of everything. We're on our second week of the CCNA. Third week? Second? We're going into the third week. So we just got done with the second week, and it's been fantastic. We're starting to get into more of the cooler stuff of networking, not just the general overview, or the, what did Jeremy call it? The Chuckdamentals? The network Chuckdamentals or something like that. I don't remember the term that he used, but basically the Chuck fundamentals from the first week. So labs are going to be starting up next week. So if you haven't already and you want to do the free version, jump on that, because it's going to start going away, I think, on the third week for that first week of stuff. And then if you want the labs, obviously you got to do the $30 a month or the $250 for the one-time payment. So anyway, I wanted to talk in this video about some stuff that came up on some of the calls and some of the past things I've been hearing about VPNs. So in this video, I want to cover a couple different things. First, I want to talk about what's going on with legislation with VPNs, because I think that's important for the average consumer and for businesses in general. And then the second part is I want to explain what a VPN and what it does. Like, what is a VPN? What does it do? How does it help you? How does it protect you, right? And then on the third one, I want to compare what's on the CCNA, at least from what I've read in the books, for the CCNA versus the Network Plus. So we're going to take a look at those three things. I'm going to try to keep the video shorter than 15 minutes this time. We'll see what happens. But let's swing over here and let's get a brief overview of what VPNs are real quick. So let's swing over here. So hello again. We've got a little bit of a reflection here. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is, like, how does a VPN actually work? So I want to draw a couple things for you here. So let's say we have this right here. This will be our branch office, okay? This is going to connect to the internet, right? Through, we'll use this as a router. And then over here, this is going to connect to your main office. So this is your main office, right? So this is your basic setup. There's a whole lot of other networking equipment that happens inside of here and inside of here, and then obviously inside of the, let me see if I can get, hello, inside the internet as well. So we'll label this down here as internet. All right, so what happens between this branch office and this main office? Essentially, the VPN is going to be able to connect us all the way through here to essentially have both of these act as the same network, even though they're in different locations, right? And so what it does to our IP packet, so you have your IP packet right here, right, that gets generated for whoever's sending stuff over the network through the VPN over to your main office. So it comes from here, and then it gets over to the internet. And when it passes through this router with your VPN, it takes this packet, we'll draw this up here, and it encrypts it. So basically says, hey, if you're reading this, you can't read it. And then it throws a couple different things on top of that. One is going to be your VPN header. And then right here, your new IP address, right? So essentially it scrambles all this information. It puts another thing on it for your VPN header, and then it has a new IP, and then that's what actually hits the internet. We forgot our router over here. So once it gets here at your main branch, it's then you're gonna have the other part of that VPN essentially check this, and then go, okay, how do I read this? And essentially that VPN tunnel, when you set it up the first time, both of these are going to say, hey, we're part of the same network, meaning we are going to trust each other. And then it's going to break that down, and it's going to be able to basically take that packet and be able to read it, right? Because it has essentially the information it needs, the algorithm, not going into YouTube or anything like that, but the algorithm that it needs in order to decipher what is in this scrambled data. So what does this do for a VPN? Well, you might have something called a man in the middle. So there are bad players out there that sometimes, some way, shape, or form, I'm just gonna put mem right here. So some way, shape, or form, they have a man in the middle. Now, they could get into the branch office and do something there, but typically when we're talking about a man in the middle, they're overtaking some type of signal transmission, whether that's wireless or wired or anything like that, and they essentially start to pose as whatever they're trying to get. And so what the VPN does is, by scrambling this, even if they were to capture this packet data and send it over to this VPN and say, hey, I am the actual branch office, well, this one goes, your math doesn't add up, that you're not the right person, I'm not going to send you anything. So that's essentially what the VPN is doing when it scrambles this data. It uses a algorithm, or basically a math formula, that says, hey, x is equal to 2, and then this one sends it over here, and it goes, okay, I do the solving for whatever math it's doing for that. X is 2, 2 is 2. Cool, we're good to go. You're safe to bet on, right? And so that's what that VPN is doing for you. It's encrypting your data so that way people that are bad players on the internet cannot take that data and go, oh, I'm gonna pretend to be you, or I'm now going to sniff all of your packets, find out and scan any information you put in, and then use that to get to your other things, like maybe your bank account or a password for your computer or email, to then start digging in and try to do something, some way, shape, or form to get money out of you. All right, let's move on to another thing that has to do with VPNs that I want to talk about now that you kind of have the whole picture of how the VPN is operating. So, what do these words actually mean? So, the privacy part. So, for VPNs, it's basically going to create or keep your confidentiality. So, this is going to prevent people, again, like that man in the middle that we were talking about. You then have your authentication. And so, what this is going to be able to do for you is it's going to verify that you are who you say you are. And then it's also going to have your data integrity, which is going to verify the packet has not changed in transit. And then you have your anti-replay. And essentially what that means is that's going to prevent that man in the middle pretending to be you. So how does it actually do some of this, right? So we have a couple different things that can work together. These are examples. There's other things that do this, but you have something called IPsec, which basically stands for IP, Internet Protocol Security. And then this is not the actual acronym though. The IPsec is going to be the terminology that they're using for RFC 4301. And essentially this means it's a standard for the security architecture for the internet protocol. So let's take a look at this and break this IP security down just a little bit more and talk about that math formula. No, we're not going to have to memorize any of that for any part of like the network engineer on the CCNA or anything like that. I'm not that great at math in terms, I used to be, but out of practice, right? So let's break this down just a little bit. So the IPsec is going to go and do two things for us. It's first going to encrypt that data. And this is attached, again, both of these things are attached to the math formula or an algorithm. So one of those is to encrypt the data, right? And the other one is to decrypt it. And so this decryption right here allows us to get that original information that's sent through that VPN from that branch office that we were talking about earlier. So essentially what happens is they have something called a session key. And that's these two things right here. So when it sends this data over, each of these will have the different parts for that session key with your basic IP security process over here, which encrypts the data. And once it sends it over, even if someone was to grab those packets in the middle, then as long as they don't have that session key, then they can't decrypt that encrypted traffic. And so oversimplifying this, session key happens, this data gets encrypted, it gets its IP and VPN header, it then does the IPsec process, it gets over here, and then that's where we can decrypt this information and actually read it in clear text. All of this happens in something called a VPN tunnel. And so whenever we are in this VPN tunnel, it makes it a lot harder for bad players to get our data, essentially. Now, there's a couple different ways you can set this up. One of the examples that I've seen is using IP security with GRE, which is just a general route encapsulation to create that VPN tunnel. I'm not going to go into all of that, but I just wanted you to get a kind of a clearer idea for how the VPN actually works. All right, let's switch back over here and let's go talk a little bit about what's happening in the real world. All right, so Editor Mizell here. We're getting into like the 12 minute mark on this video. I'm gonna split this up with a second part on what's actually happening in the real world for VPNs and legislation and stuff that's coming out, along with the Network Plus CCNA explanation of that, and I'll just release those videos the next day or something like that. And I realized as I was editing this that I think I'm wearing the exact same shirt I wore a week ago when I recorded the other video. So now I'm just thinking, should I just go gray shirt the entire time and it just be one long continuous joke? I don't know. If you have any idea, if you want me to do that just for memes, let me know. And yeah, so I'll post part 2 and all that at a later date, probably a day or two for now, however long it takes me to edit. So I'm usually editing on the weekends right now. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. That feels weird to say, but hey, apparently it's supposed to help us out if we say that when we do this on YouTube. I have no idea how this stuff works in terms of marketing and whatnot, but hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.